Hey everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Um, I have our deck up and shared, so hopefully everyone can see that. Um, we'll probably have people trickling in as we get started here. So we'll maybe just give our welcome and intros, and then hold off a couple more
Yeah.
minutes to start into the meat
And
of this.
and guys, feel free to put questions into the Q&A. Obviously, we're going to go through the deck here and present, but if there is any specific questions that we can answer, feel free to just drop them in there, and we will address them as they come up. So again, thanks for joining.
We'll kick off here in just 1 minute.
All right, let's go, Lynn.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Scott and I are going to spend the next 30 or 40 minutes with you discussing the direction of the IT service management industry, where we think AI is going to have a very disruptive force in that world. Um, this isn't a product pitch. Obviously, we're builders and we're in this space, but we're very much going to give you our view of what's happening and where we think you guys can take advantage of it because it's still relatively early in the process of adoption of AI into this. And this will hopefully give you a clear understanding of where we see the industry going and what you could potentially do to take advantage and be one of the early movers in this space. So a little bit about myself and Scott. We've both come to start Helios from a very long career in IT managed services. So we're coming at this from a different angle than maybe anyone else building a product in this space. Partly because we've been the ones on call. We've been the one paged at 3 in the morning for issues. Coming from NTT, Scott, both and I were running large um, global teams responsible for thousands of individuals that ultimately were responsible for tens of thousands of customer systems. And as you might imagine, that had a lot of volume of work required to do. So this is going to be our take on from that lens where we see IT disruption in the
Yeah.
AI in the service management area and in IT operations.
Yeah, and just a little quick background on Helios because there is. I'm just looking through the list. There's a few people that know us. There's some new faces here as well. So we launched Helios about a year and a half ago with the idea that we're helping our clients navigate the complex landscape of the AI space. We relate it very similar to where cloud was 15 years ago. There's tons of different point solutions. There's failed projects because people aren't understanding the best way to deploy it, how to secure it, how to protect the environments. And so we're coming at this from that angle. We made the choice to go down the product path maybe about a year ago when we started building our platform out. And it was mainly because we see that there is a gap in this space, albeit when you do look across the ITSM landscape, there is a ton of different providers that are out there. The incumbents are building AI, but we do look at it from a different lens, and that's kind of what we want to walk you through and how we see AI really shaping this landscape and and being more than just the level one service desk type agent. Like, how do you really truly help your operations team solve problems that are keeping them up at night or calling them at night? Systems are going to go bump in the middle of the night. How do you solve those quicker, and how do you use AI to do that? So that's what we'll kind of walk you through here.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott. So a little bit about the state of play for 26. Definitely a very dynamic environment. If you were to have asked us even 6 months ago, we would have said that the state of play was vastly different. There's a lot of change going on. There's a lot of features being added by incumbent software and companies that are building in the space. So it's very much a dynamic environment. One of the things that we think you can take advantage of by getting in and starting now. But there's still a lot of headroom, I guess I would call it. So if you look at where the industry is, the stat on the top is from starting in 2025. So we're probably a little bit ahead of that, maybe 10 or 15% of enterprises, but we're definitely nowhere near the 70%. Taking advantage of agentic AI in their IT operations. So truly having agents working as digital employees in their business. So that being said, there's a big opportunity to get started on this now and be part of the front of that wave as opposed to the tail end of it.
Yeah, and when you think about AI use in the enterprise today, the a lot of the hype in this space says that everyone's doing AI, everyone's got a path and a plan. It's not the case. We talk to lots of different clients throughout our days, and most of them are still not even sure where to start, how to really incorporate AI into the day to day. And then again, back to the how do you scale and secure AI agents in your workspace? There's a lot of concern around that too. So, if you feel you're behind, don't.
Yeah,
There,
you're definitely not.
you're not. Everyone is starting this right now, and as much as you hear, the bigger companies laying off people because of AI, there's some truth to that, I'm sure. But for the most part, in the enterprise world, and when we think about enterprise, we're talking in the call it 500 million to 5 billion range in revenue. That's really where people are still trying to figure out their path forward and where they're going. And we really present more the kind of this crawl, walk, run type solution where start small. Don't think that you have to boil the ocean in the first deployment. Get people trained, get people used to it. That's where people are right now, and some are further along and some are behind that. So we see that this is a huge opportunity to start capitalizing on this now, and finding those use cases in your environment to do so. And we do think that the service desk and IT operations is a great place to start in this.
Well, and that's also an area that I think has a level of complexity and um, risk as to why it's lagged a little bit, right? So a lot of the things that were maybe marketing or content generation or document review were the first use cases that companies started to deploy AI solutions in. But the technology and the adoption is getting to a point where this is a real thing. You can do this now. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about what we've built and what we're building, but it's doing real work in business today. It's able to act and work autonomously. So the technology is definitely there to start adopting. So that I guess we would say is, you're early enough that you can really make some headway. But a year from now, right, 2 years from now, there's going to be a lot more catching up to do, I guess I would say, right? So definitely lots of opportunity. The industry is starting to adopt AI in IT operations, but the time is kind of now to start doing this. And I think that's why a lot of you are here, right? So hopefully we provide you with a little bit of a framework to start that journey, right? What to look for, what we think is a differentiator, where you can take advantage of the technology here.
So I want to just kind of take a step back here before we really dive into this and really define what AI means, because it's something that everyone is hyping that it's new, and it's something that we haven't had before. But AI has been around for a while. It's either been in the form of machine learning or in other forms that before these generative AI and GPTs and this kind of stuff came. People were using it from an RPA perspective and different ways to automate their environments. What really changed, and this was a few years ago, was the introduction of generative AI, right? How do I use AI to be creative, to create things, generate code, generate uh, drafts, whatever it could be. And that's really what we saw, we see as the kind of what people think about right now. When they think AI, they're still thinking chatbots, right? They're still thinking, I ask this thing a question and it gives me an answer. They're not, they understand they can do more than that, but we still see a lot of that right now is how do I get, answer a question bot type thing in my environment. Where we are driving to, and especially from a service desk and operations perspective, is the true agentic AI. Think digital employee in your environment, being able to really take requests or take action on things that may come into it and solve the problem just like the human would. It's where we think that the biggest bang in the IT industry is gonna come from. You think about events that come in from your SIEM, or monitor events that come in from something that goes down. Right now, it takes tons of time to analyze those and understand them, and then really truly push the resolution out. It's still human, right? In this new world where we see it, and that's what we're building towards, and what we're seeing the industry is going, is really being able to take action across those means.
Yeah, the generative certainly has value, right? If you can give it the context of what your employee is working on and how to solve those problems, it can definitely surface information and provide answers to individuals to do the job faster. So, you know, the numbers aren't overwhelming. You know, maybe it's 15% faster, more work per hour that those individuals can get. When you really start to get over to that agentic side and that autonomous worker, and to Scott's earlier, don't boil the ocean. It doesn't have to take on every possible task, but the high volume ones that it can take on, it could be completely autonomous on. And that surfacing of information can be completely autonomous. If you look at it from a help desk perspective, if you have a strong knowledge base, a lot of what comes in from the users could be answered or solved just from knowing what's there and giving them the appropriate information to take action on their own. And the other piece around that from an agentics perspective is um, training and onboarding. So something's always changing. Someone rolls out a new application, it comes with a whole user guide, and the whole community has questions that peak. Well, if you train an AI agent to answer all of those questions, now you don't have to worry about that flex, right? So that once you get into that agentic mode, there's a lot of value in feeding it knowledge, having it do that work, having it solve those problems. And then you just keep extending that from a tooling perspective and giving it the right access and ability in the environment to actually go and solve problems like, Scott's analysis of alerts. If it can go and do the analysis and log into your cloud environment, look at your SIEM and look at your logs, it can triage every one of those, right? That's generally more than most um, organizations do today, right? Especially in our experience, if you have a huge volume of things, the important ones get looked at, and then you may have a failure where no one's looking at it after that.
Yeah. And then, the kind of the human in the loop approval method of this too. So, we think about it in terms of, if you think generative AI in the terms of IT and ticket management, let's just use that as an example. The agent gets the ticket. Okay. The agent reads the ticket and understands it. It may have to go get external context. Context is king. We all know that. So it's important to pull in as much as you possibly can to this so that it has the knowledge to solve the problem. So the first thing it looks at is, do you have the knowledge to solve this problem? If yes, then great, go on to the next step. If no, then there's a couple things. You either need to take that ticket, you can't do anything with it, or you have to ask more questions and have to be intelligent on it. When you get into this human in the loop where your human is kind of watching this, it really takes away from the ability to go do that. The agent can't be as high performing as it could if you allow it to just do more in the environment. That could be ask questions, that could be go get more context, those types of things. So we look at it as, when you deploy AI on service desks, absolutely make sure that you're watching what the agent's doing in the beginning, but then give it more autonomy to be able to go and ask questions and do things to actually surface if it can solve these problems. The other thing that we see surfacing right now, and there's a few people here from our past life I see on this call as well. But these knowledge bases that companies have, they're a mess, right? And you have to give it good data in order to be successful. So the first thing you need to do is clean up your knowledge base. You get garbage in, garbage out. If you give bad knowledge to bad data to the agent, it's going to solve the problem in a bad way, right?
Yeah.
So
Or,
it's really
or
super.
you're, I was just going to say, add one thing on the knowledge base, or you're reliant on everything's written for a human to decipher. So if you have a block at the bottom of the knowledge base article that's internal for IT that says, here's the password for logging into that system to do the work. Yeah, you need to separate those out because you don't want to rely on a large language model's differentiation. So there's work to do to get this right, but it doesn't. I would just say it doesn't have to have this pristine, everything's in the right place. You can start small, start rolling it out, and then build upon that and get into that level where you're trusting what it's doing, you're monitoring the output, not approving every step.
Agreed.
This is probably the biggest piece about where we think success is going to be delineated for what the agents can do in the future, and really where we're very focused on is um, there's going to be a plateau if you just give knowledge to the agent and some built-in connectivity to SaaS products or maybe your Active Directory. The work that you can offload to an agentic agent and the scope that you can start to bring to the table is going to be very dependent on how you can connect other platforms to it, how you can connect it to applications, how you can connect it to on-premise systems and unique things to your environment. And we feel that that's going to be a limitation to, maybe a traditional ITSM that is bolting a ticket, an agent to the top of the ticket system with like a workflow system or something that you create your own workflows in. If the tools aren't there, if the connectivity is not there, if there isn't a partner working with you to create some of these bespoke connections that may be unique to your environment, you're going to start to hit walls as to what you can give it. So think about even user onboarding for example. A lot of companies don't have a very simple user onboarding experience where you just go create the user in one place and boom, they have access to everything. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of application specific ads that may have to happen. So when you hire a new employee and they're in a group, you may have to log into the ERP system. May need to log into some on-premise homegrown system, etc. And um, if you don't have this connectivity, if you don't have the applications available to the agent to do this work, then it's going to be limited. So this is an area of focus for us, right? We're actively building a lot more connections. This is an area where we like to work with our customers as partners in order to, like Scott said, start small, crawl, walk, run, but keep adding that capability into the tool set that the agent can call. And we think that's going to be a key piece. So, part of this when you're thinking about how you move forward is think through the processes that the team does today, and how well you're positioned to expose them. This is also a changing part of the industry too. There's lots of tools out there that are becoming agent friendly, right? So there's ways that you can expose things that may have been more difficult even 6 months ago now. So that's one of the things that I think is important to work with a partner on, is keeping up with the changes in the tools and the technology that's out there that can be deployed to empower these agents to do more work within the business. So that's, I think, a very critical piece, like where the agent is wired into.
Yeah, and we're big believers that the agent should stay outside of the core tools. So if you look at ServiceNow and Freshservice and Fin and some of these other, well, maybe not Fin as much because Fin's a little different, but some of these other providers out there, most of the, call it the legacy players, the ones that have millions of lines of code, they're all claiming to do some of this stuff, but at the end of the day, they only have the context of what they know within that platform. They're not reaching out necessarily to these external systems. And that you kind of suffer from that a little bit, right? So the moment that you need knowledge from your SAP system or some other enterprise application, the agent needs to be able to get that to be able to answer those questions. And sometimes within these these products, they've limited themselves, and they don't want you to go outside of the platform. They want you to stay within their ecosystem because that's how you're sticky to them. If you really build outside of that, they become a system of record, and that's, in our mind, that's bad for them, right? They don't want to just be the system of record. And now you're seeing a lot of the changes. Like if you look out in the industry, you see Salesforce is now moving to a CLI based approach, which is interesting because everyone used their UI, you pay for their UI, all that things, but now they're just essentially they are becoming a system of record, but they're acknowledging the fact, and they're going to build tools and things like that. But ServiceNow sees it. They acquired MoveWorks. MoveWorks is still sits outside of it, and they see the value of having the agent sit outside of the platform. Now you'll see more integrations and things like that coming with it, but at the end of the day, if you can keep the agent working within that platform or whatever tool you may be using, but still give it context of around the other enterprise apps, you're gonna have a better experience overall and be able to solve more tickets. The other thing is, if you look at a lot of these, then call it the newer products that are out there. There's Sit and Console and a few of these others that are kind of pitching similar messages that we are because they see the industry the same way. But what they're doing is they're talking a lot about, these integrations that they have, but they're integrating with the very simple solutions. They're integrating with the SaaS providers that are out there. They're not talking about how they integrate with SAP. They're not talking about how they work with your on-prem Active Directory. Like they're building easy integrations because it's easy to do that, right? It's hard to do the full enterprise application integration, and that's what we see the biggest value is if you can truly get an agent that works across your landscape. It works in your ServiceNow instance, it works within your SAP environment, it works within Microsoft 365, it works within some legacy application that you may have custom written, right? That's where the value is really going to come in, and being able to build those integrations is going to be super important to drive more resolution. Sure, everyone can drive the level one help desk stuff. I can reset passwords. I can route tickets. I can update information. I can add a user to a group. The hard stuff is what you're trying to do right now. That's where the value is.
Yeah, I would add a little bit too to that, that there's like um, the future state, which we'll get to in a few slides. It's also important if you start thinking of scaling past that level one help desk work more into IT operations. And if it's got access to those back end systems, it can be a coworker in IT operations, not just service desk, uh, external facing or customer facing resolution. It starts to bleed into how can you help operate your business. And this is how we use AI in our business today. Agents are connected into our backend environment, and have access to do triage and read the logs and find out what's going on. And that makes operations a lot more effective. And as you get to a point where there's trust um, and the ability and the autonomy, then you can actually have resolution happening outside of that first level and into the IT ops space too. So it's almost important for that next phase that we see coming, and I would say relatively quickly after the work we're talking about here, which is much more, you know, consumers of IT services focused. So just a little bit to think about, and we've kind of touched on a few things here, about how if you're looking to get started in the space, how do you start evaluating it? Where do you look in your organization? What can you do as a precursor? We've said crawl, walk, run a few times. We say that all the time when we're talking about building. Create a scope that makes sense, that creates value. We've got a customer, for example, where after hours and password resets were their biggest problem. And then we're like, great, that's a perfect scope to start on. It doesn't have to boil the ocean, doesn't have to do everything, but it's got to do those things well. It's got to do that through multiple modes of access. So, if you're locked out of your environment, chances are you're calling. So it's got to be able to answer a phone call. It's got to be able to verify identity. So find that scope that makes sense in your world. It may be alerting, and it may not be, those customer facing ones, but there may be a high volume of alert, and there may be a lot of noise in the environment, how do you get it to go through and triage and truly take the diligent time that people wouldn't, because we're not wired to do that work really well, to go through, 1,000 alerts or 10,000 alerts a day, and actually look at those, correlate issues, and bubble up what it's seeing and what it thinks the solution is to people to then go in action. So think about that use case. Think about how you would approach rolling something out in your IT environment, scope that, and then look to roll something like that out. Because at the end of the day, it's going to just scale from there, right? It's going to scale from a capabilities perspective. It's going to scale from a an access perspective and a trust in your environment. Um, the integrations piece is kind of what we just touched on in the previous slide. We think that's really, really critical. So again, if you're looking at a product, if you're looking at a way to bring AI to the operations, to the IT service desk specifically, if it's going to be really reliant on you building a bunch of stuff, ask yourself, am I capable? Is that what I want to do? Or is there something more as a service that can be delivered to you as an outcome? Look for those outcomes that you want, right? Like I kind of said, when you're scoping this environment, is it is it is it just I need to take work off of these people's plates so that they can do more complex tasks? Is it, well, I don't have a solution for after hours right now, I need to roll something out? Is it, I'm probably going to have to hire four people because we're scaling our business up. How can I maybe defer or just scale with the people that we have, but add technology um, to deliver, right? So what are you trying to accomplish, and make sure you've got buy-in on that being the goal from the business. Um, and then work with a partner, right? So a lot of tools out there are going to give you a basket of parts, um, which may not be uh, the fastest path to success, right? So there's been lots of talk about companies starting these projects and not getting them across the finish line. We think that if you work on these four things, then you're going to have a much higher um, probability of success, because you've defined it really well, you've got buy-in on it, and you're working with someone or a product that can help you get to that finish line. So,
And
that's kind of our roadmap, if you will, if you're starting to think about or look at doing something in this space.
yeah, and I caution again, this is why we push this approach. I caution what we see happen quite often is when you start talking about the art of possible, that's a great thing to talk about because you kind of get to what you want the outcome is. But a lot of times we see that the outcome then keeps expanding and it becomes so unachievable that the project is going to fail. So yes, you can put your North Star out there. You can set your big goal, but at the end of the day, break it down into smaller winnable chunks, because that's when you're going to be successful. Once you get, we're going through this right now with one of our customers it's enabling the full platform. They started with one site. They're going to roll it out there. They're going to make sure they get good responses, make sure the agent is doing what it needs to do, make sure the triage is happening, and then they're going to slowly roll out the rest of their sites. We had to step them back a little bit because one, they were going to turn it on to everyone right away, but two, the goalpost was moving a lot on what they wanted to accomplish. It went from, hey, I just want to be able to answer questions and solve the problem through our knowledge base, to full blown triage of tickets. And those two things are wildly different. They're all achievable to get there, but you have to phase it out. You have to break it down into smaller chunks in order to be successful on it. You know,
Yep.
we have a vision of the future, and where we're taking our platform is they truly the operations side of the house. So think about, if an event happens, it evaluates it, it understands the impact, it understands the priority, it understands how many users are impacted. It then can make smart, intelligent decisions on what to do with that. If it can't solve the problem, which most likely, if it's a big, let's call it a major incident, data center down, bad example, but let's call it that. It can then start triggering processes that you have established internally. So it might say, okay, great. First thing we need to do is spin up the bridge. Okay. The agent now becomes the incident commander. It finds all the right teams. It finds the contacts. It starts calling those contacts with a Teams bridge that says, I need you to join this. We have a major issue. Here's some details about it. The person gets the call. They can answer questions about it. Everyone gets on the bridge right now. The actual incident manager, the human, probably gets involved at this point because you're still going to want some of that aspects. And then the incident starts happening, and now you can have the agent go reach out and pull logs. You can have the agent go out and find out what changes happened in the environment because you have all your change management in the system as well. So you can start automatically correlating some of the tickets that have came in prior to it to see if you can narrow it down to one particular thing. And all this can happen autonomously, but going from the hey, I'm just going to answer a few questions to the users to get to that point, you have to have a good process and a good path to walk in order to get there. And we think we have a methodology that we can do that, but ultimately, that's where you guys, as kind of owners of your own business, they have to understand that you have to have a path to take to get there.
So a little bit about why would you take that path? What I would say is there's a tremendous opportunity to save costs, right? Because an AI resolved ticket could be less than $2 to handle that, including the user interaction, including a phone conversation, kind of that ownership of resolving a ticket by an AI agent, based off good knowledge base articles, based off tool availability, all those things. But there's definitely, depending on what your current costs are for your help desk, and especially if you're doing phone support in the US, right, you're going to drive a much higher cost per resolution when you're having those conversations. So there's a significant potential for cost savings. We're not saying that you remove costs from the organization. That's not our pitch. I know a lot of, Scott mentioned it earlier. There's a lot of talk about companies laying people off for AI. I think that's probably just a little bit of AI washing. We would rather see the role shift. We would rather see the people that are in those roles stepping up to take those more complex tasks, being trained maybe in the application space to do more of the things that the agent's not going to be exposed to or not going to be capable of doing in the near term. Train individuals to do that.
I haven't met an IT team that says, "Oh, we have plenty of staff." Right.
We're overstaffed. Please take
yeah,
our people. That's
I,
usually
I mean,
not the
I've
cry
ran
of an
some
IT manager.
I ran some really large service desks, and I don't think any of my guys ever told me that we didn't have enough people.
Yeah.
So the idea is, shift those people into more productive things. Let the agent take the load off. And again, back to the whole operational goal, like we don't want to just see it as a level one service desk agent. We want it to be additive and accretive to the engineering side of the world too, where it can help solve problems in that space. So, what Len's showing here is really on the front end service desk side. If you can cut your per ticket cost from $25 down to less than $2 a ticket, and you can shift the people in the roles to be doing more high level things. That's a huge win for the organization. You save costs in other places, you get more projects done. Your customers get happier because you have more time. And we come from the MSP world. So, the more time we could spend on our customers and less on the busy work was huge for them. So the more you can do, the better experience, the better customer set surveys you're going to get, all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, the other thing I would say that you get from rolling out agentics into this world is you probably get a lower turnover, which means you get, to Scott's point, better customer satisfaction. You get more knowledge staying within the organization, and you take some of that, repetitive work out, monitoring alerts, triaging tickets, answering simple questions. That there's not a huge value creation there. So taking some of that out, and then to Scott's point, having it scale from there. So where we think we're going, definitely right now, the capability is there to deploy these things relatively quickly into your environment, not having to do a huge disruption, especially the way that we've built our platform is it plugs into the ticketing systems that exist. It starts acting as a digital employee. So The capabilities there today. You can start and you can get the out of the box value of front end ingestion of tickets and working through the routing, getting them to the right hands if it's not a problem that would normally be solved in the help desk, getting it with the right information to the right people. That's table stakes today. That's capability that exists. That's simple. I would say the 27 bullet here is realistic now. Partly dependent on um, the the tools and technology you expose to the agent. Letting it go through and do complex issue resolution, probably still some work to do there, but well um, defined actions. And from our perspective, we've taken the approach of like giving everyone the ability to go through and say, this is the kind of information you need to solve this ticket so that the agent knows, okay, I'm going to solve this ticket. I have to go and gather all this information. So now I can go and execute. That's getting there now. 2027 for sure. They'll be um, very, very much a lot of those prescriptive tasks handled completely autonomously. The prediction by 29 is 80% of it is going to be autonomously resolved by individuals. Again, this is highly dependent on your organization, how well you've documented stuff, and what you expose. I think you can get there a lot faster than that. I think Gartner's view or aperture is large industry and large organizations that may have a lot of complexity, security concerns, and gates to get through. So from a technology perspective, it's definitely moving faster than that. If you're in an organization where you can move quickly, then you can get to that point this year. And then to the point about IT operations, then start moving outside of that first tier resolution and into more of the complex, coworker for IT versus triage and resolution for external tickets. So that's where we see the shift going. Again, it's moving very quickly. The capabilities are there, and the capacity of an organization to adopt this is going to be one of the things that is going to tell how fast you can get there.
Yep.
One more
So
thing
so
here.
yeah, so this one, so we said it wasn't a product pitch.
A little bit of a
A
product
little,
pitch.
little bit of product pitch here. So you're gonna hear for a second to talk about it. But you know, we've built our platform really around everything that we're saying here. And we're a big believer of, that the AI has to come first, versus a platform that bolts AI on top of it or, integrates it into it. And again, we're big believers of external context. So being able to pull all those different aspects into the platform. So the way we built our product. So Mirror Resolve is really two different pieces. We have our Mirror Resolve agent, which is going to be really the agent that sits in the middle of whatever, right? So it's integrated with Zendesk, Freshdesk, ServiceNow. Um, we're building a lot of different, as we get clients and requesting the ITSM, we're building those integrations. So essentially, we believe that the agent can sit in the middle of all of this as well. But we've also, and it can still solve problems. It can answer tickets. You can get a lot of real world value out of this. But we also believe that a platform that was built AI first, that isn't just a system of record, which is what you're making, your ITSMs if you put the agent there. There's a lot of value you can see from that. So our other product is really the Mirror Resolve ITSM, and this came because of us talking to our clients and seeing, they didn't want to be in ServiceNow anymore. They're sick of paying that massive bill every year. And we're actively taking clients into this platform to do it. And so the way we've built it is it's a full functioning ITSM, but it's AI first. So it's got a correlation engine. So if multiple tickets come in around the same topic, it's going to understand the CI. It's going to come in. It's going to bring that into its context window, and it's going to start grouping tickets automatically, right? It's got integrations across different backends. We're integrated from a CMD from an automated CMD perspective with Jamf, Intune. We can scrape AWS, we can scrape Azure. We're building Google right now. Like the idea is, your CMDB CMDB becomes the kind of the point solution, like or the active solution around solving some of these problems and context for what agent can do. It needs to know what systems those things live on. And the problem with a lot of legacy CMDBs is they're manually updated, right? And they get stale. So we're looking at it from being able to integrate those things and bring in real world data. And then the other piece that we're trying to do is we're really trying to solve for that scenario I gave you. A massive problem comes in, or any problem comes in, it can take it end to end, including engaging your major incident management process, including looking at your change requests, including looking at problem tickets that may have been in the past. We're trying to pull this all into the platform. And so it's a full functioning ITIL suite, but it's a lot more integrated from an AI perspective that you can get from some of the other providers. Again, we didn't bolt AI on top of this. We built it as AI is the interface to this. We have an MCP server that you can provide Claude or Codex or whatever agent you might use out there as well that can work within the platform. You get a true assistant or digital employee that's working with you as an engineer or a tech versus being able to solve or ask basic questions. And so we've built the whole stack around this today.
I think the key takeaway there for everyone is that the agent came first, and the platform was built to be the supporting infrastructure and apparatus around it from an AI native perspective. So if you think about giving the agent knowledge and context to be that full end-to-end resolution and that interface, you wouldn't have to log in. You would just talk to the agent and say, "Hey, I need you to help me create a change request on this CI for this time frame," and it's going to know what's running there. It's going to know what's changed in the past. It's going to know what's connected to it. So that future state and getting to that unlocks a lot more than just the ability to have a digital employee in the front end of the business. So.
That's what we have for you today, guys. I mean, this is
that's it.
we'd love to continue the conversation. It doesn't even have to be about our platform. We're passionate about where the industry is going. We're passionate about AI. We can help steer in any direction. We've done a lot in this space, even outside of the IT service desk area as well. So we've built other agents and things like that. We just decided that we're going to capitalize on our background a little bit here, and we're going to see how we can really help in that space, but we can help in other areas. And it's Mira, not Myar. So just so you know.
Yeah, happy to have the conversation. If there's questions that people want us to, I see there's one in here. Scott wants to know what the first 90 days look like in an organization. So the first 90 days in an organization that's looking to improve IT service visibility across distributed operating systems, core systems, integrations, critical workflows. So yeah, the first 90 days, Scott, if you're rolling out, again, part of what we just talked about there at the end was the full-blown ITSM versus the agent working in an existing one. You can definitely start with the agent working in an existing ITSM. That gets you that initial value right away. It's relatively simple to set up. We need to onboard you. We need to get your knowledge base connected. It's a few weeks worth of work. But then you've got somebody working in your environment 24/7 from an AI employee perspective. So that's kind of the first, call it, 2 to 4 weeks. And then it operates, right? We connect it to other systems as you need, but then it operates for that period of time. And if you're going to move to the AI native ITSM, we take all of that information that we've gotten around your existing tickets, your existing problems, your existing CMDB, and we can move that into the backend ITSM, which unlocks what Scott's talking about, which is really that IT operations agent, where you can integrate it from an MCP perspective through your own tools. You can chat with it as a Teams agent, just have the conversation with it directly in Teams or in Slack, and interact with it and have it work with you. So I would say that's realistic in the 90-day time frame.
The other
but
piece,
you can get there quickly in the first, call it 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, organizational change management is super important when it comes to this as well. We've seen it in a couple different clients right now. Is you have to communicate to the teams that are going to be using this agent, especially the end user side. I don't know, the AI is everywhere. You get calls by AI. You call into different companies and AI is there, but people still have not grasped the concept that when they call into a phone system that AI answers, that they
Like
can
a
talk
real,
to that.
like a
They
real,
can
true,
talk.
robust AI agent, not
They
not
can
a
talk to that agent as really a human, right? And we're seeing a lot of struggle with this a little bit. And this is why I said organizational change management is so important. You have to explain this to your users. We're seeing people struggle with it, and we still get the human. I want to talk to a human. Service
yeah.
desk. Like you just one words because people are so in their way about like, oh, these are just it's just some crappy phone system that I have to yell at, and they don't realize that these things can actually be personable. Like, part of that 90 days, the first thing we do is just design the persona of what this agent's going to be. What's his or her name? How does it act? How does it respond? Do you want it to be funny? Like, you have to go through this thing. How do you brand it? Do you want it to be branded as your company? Do you want to be branded as something different? Like, we go through this kind of strategy with the customer so that you bring life to the agent. You don't just have this robotic thing that just answers questions. You want it to look, feel, act, and be part of your team, an extension of your team. So that's part of that first 90 days, Scott.
Appreciate the question. Anyone else, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. You can reach Scott or myself at our emails, which I'll put in here.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's no other questions, guys, appreciate everyone's time. I know we went about 2 minutes over, but we're excited about where this is heading, and we think we can add a lot of value to everyone's organization. So feel free to reach out. We're happy to show you the platform, demo it, all that. So thank you.
Thank you for everyone. Take care.